1.
How to interpret media in an unbiased way by Sonia Garcarz. So today I'd like to talk to you about a topic that I've been learning a lot about and I'm quite passionate about. And although this first question is quite generic, I'd like for you to think about what do you consider to be fake news, as this is up for interpretation for many different people. Is it information that is misleading, or is it information that is outright wrong? And this is, of course, subjective to different people. However, I'd like to also therefore think about where have you seen bias in the real world? Was it in school, the workplace, or also can you even think of any examples where bias has been used or used as a weapon in information campaigns, as well as different media outlets that have been putting out information in order to encompass their own ideas and beliefs. How many biases are there is one of my final questions for now when contemplating this topic of misinformation. Biases tend to vary when it comes to looking at this from a psychological point of view. It is quite subjective to quantify the amount of biases out there. However, one of the ones that I'll be focusing on most today is evaluative bias, which is most commonly just the one that we see every day and is considered to be one where we as people interpret data in different ways and therefore fix or change the data to match our ideas. A quote that relates to this is, "To describe is to prescribe," which for many different people, of course, means a lot of different things. Personally, it means that humans consciously have a tendency to describe things subjectively rather than attempting to do so objectively. And we naturally intertwine words that simultaneously describe and evaluate, something that is, of course, not neutral and which we naturally do as humans. And therefore, we prescribe through our word choice what we support, which is not always the fallacy that we should be doing. When it comes to the spreadage and the consuming of information, you've got the process of accommodating information, which means that we modify our schema and our beliefs to fit the data that we have been presented in, if it is, of course, true. We change our lenses and our beliefs to make sense of the new information and experiences, and we are objective when it comes to rethinking our beliefs and values. However, of course, when we are assimilating information, this could result in modifying the data to fit the schema and the beliefs that we have been brought up with and we personally believe. And this, of course, means that we fix our information to match our pre-existing glasses or lenses and opinion to what we want to see. And this causes, of course, information distortion as well as many harmful effects. In general, there's a bias related to this assimilation, which is called assimilation bias in terms of psychology. And there's examples that range from propaganda, lies, and fake articles that we could probably think of examples of, especially due to the COVID-19 pandemic. When it comes to, for example, this assimilative bias, we could think about how descriptions are used in describing objects versus humans and people and personalities. If we look at a room and a woman, we could think about how to describe them. If we were to distinguish in a room between the temperature of hot and cold, we could see that there are quantifiable levels after which, for example, a room would be considered hot, and quantifiable levels under which a room would be considered cold, which therefore shows that we are able to categorically state whether the room is hot or cold. However, when it comes to talking about a person's personality in this case, to describe them as hot or cold or distinguish them, there's a lot of factors that interplay with this. The occurrence and the context of the events that they have done, and of course the context of how their personality is developed. Therefore, it is hard to categorically state whether they are hot or cold, as this is not quantifiable, more qualitative. And this relates to the language we also use when we're describing not just objects, but mostly people. Our beliefs, values, and perceptions, of course, influence our language, and how we refer to someone shapes how we perceive and treat them eventually. So one of the examples I thought of was something I've heard most often recently was "all men cheat," which is diminishing and quite rude towards the whole population of men, as it generalizes and categorizes men as cheaters. And the praising of this shows that there's no other option than this stereotype or this generalization, which shows evaluative bias at its prime example, where it is harmful towards men. There is also ways that evaluative bias has been useful for us, for example, in the use of politically correct terms, where these terms have been coined to reference people of different ethnicities, races, etc., to not be offensive to them, as there are different words that are not politically correct which have negative connotations and histories which people do not want to associate themselves with. So this shows that, of course, this evaluative bias can be used in two ways, in a positive and a diminishing light. However, we must be able to distinguish them and also know about the negative consequences. So in this assimilative bias, there's also, of course, the view that information or data sets can be dichotomous, meaning that, for example, you've got black versus white, right? You've got old versus young people, pregnant versus non-pregnant people. And I think that that last example primarily shows that there are two mutually exclusive or contradictory categories when we're talking about a data set. However, a continuous approach to this assimilative bias means that you've got shades of colors of people, you've got a whole population, and you also take into account all of the different factors that are there to formulate them, and shows that there are various points between the two polar opposites, which usually this dichotomous view causes the polarization of people in a society and many harmful effects when it comes to then making it easier to spread misinformation. And yeah, this is also here shown that continuous is more accurate and meaningful, while of course the dichotomous is disguised as basically continuous data disguised as dichotomous. Speaking of polarizing society, I'd like to talk about the essence of fake news and how fake news at large is misleading information that is presented as legitimate articles or news sources to try and prove a point. Its goal is to often damage one's image or social perception, and examples are, like mentioned earlier, with assimilative bias, propaganda, lies, or fake articles. And these are quite obviously propaganda and fake articles, with that child found in a cave, or Britain threatens to invade Switzerland over Toblerone-shaped row. However, Millie Bobby Brown breaks silence on being a flat earther could be considered upon first for a reader that is looking only at the headline and not reading the rest of the context of the article, where they delve into the details of this lie detector test. It is hard for a reader to actually maybe objectively think about this information, because it is one-sidedly saying that she has broken her silence on being a flat earther. It immediately gives the connotation that she is a flat earther, and not that she just breaks her silence, which upon further critical analysis shows that that does not necessarily connote that. There are many other sources that show that this information bias does not only come in the form of news articles, as it could be on social media with YouTube, Twitter, leading the way in misinformation, as well as also news articles and news websites that claim to be credible due to their acronyms and their names, but are not always. Even here, we have a Twitter post by Emmanuel Macron, and also here later by one of the members of the Smith family, Jaden Smith, where Emmanuel Macron, for example, here uses a photo of the Amazon and says that our house is burning, and of course pledges for help to the Amazon, which is a great cause. Here as well we have Jaden Smith, I'm pretty sure, showing an image of the Amazon rainforest burning and helping the Amazon rainforest. And of course the nature of this cause and this help is good. However, this photo has been proven to be taken 30 years ago, which shows that although the cause is good and the people, and Emmanuel Macron and here both of the examples of people propagating this good cause, their intentions were good. However, the output of the images being fake is quite detrimental to the message that they would like to send, and also their credibility. To what extent is this a problem? So a 2016 study by MIT discovered that verified news on Twitter takes 6 times longer to reach 1,000 retweets than a real news source. And people are more likely to believe fake news, as it is often perceived as more interesting or enticing. And of course, this is a global problem as it affects education on a global scale, also seen by the infographic here. And 10% of readers of top news sources come from social media, while 40% of readers actually of fake news come to social media, showing that this difference is detrimental to our education on a global scale. The risks, there are many. Obviously, there are many risks to fake news, as they can be detrimental to one's personal image and beliefs, attitudes, perceptions, as they will ultimately change their behavior to adjust to this new data. And fake news articles can be entry points for hackers attempting to steal your information, showing that it can be weaponized. And it also creates false hope and confusion, which could cause illicit feelings of anger and frustration in many different people. And it includes editing and Photoshop, which gives teenagers and all people of different ages an altered and false definition of the world that they may see and appearance. Now, how to distinguish real news from fake news? You think it's all easy just by looking at the source or researching if the news is credible and maybe comparing it. And at large, that is what you have to do. You have to check the web for web link for spelling errors or uncredible domains, and you have to identify the reporter and trust official professionals with global news agencies. You have to pay attention to the titles and how they are phrased throughout this bias, and you have to read the comments as well. You have to stay objective. You might as well ask a specialist and pay attention to the images and photos and to see if they're not, of course, have been used 30 years earlier, like in this example. And of course you have to have meta thinking, so you have to critically think and approach these different news articles and not disregard them due to your own personal beliefs, but honestly opinionate your opinion based on the information presented. Now, how to take action as well. So these are more specific tools that you can use with the rise of technology. For example, fact checkers, which can either be used as browser extensions or websites as whole. For example, you've got some examples here. Factiverse is quite good because it uses AI to look at a claim that you write in and then give you counter articles and articles in favor of your claim. Not giving you a certain answer whether the information is real or fake, but giving you a platform to actually research for yourself and search if the information is fake or not. You have to rethink your news diet and expand the information network to diversify perspectives from different quality sources, of course. And I think that awareness of attention grabbing information and research will help you as well not propagate this biased information, as even you can be targeted with it. So please think before you post. And if I'd like to conclude this, I'd probably say that distinguishing between the real news and fake news is one of the most vital parts of our life today in the 21st century. Moving forward with new developments of AI, virtual reality, mixed reality, and all different new types of technology that can really skew with our minds. Thank you very much, and I'll see you.